Board of Education regular board meeting, April 17th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Mrs. Hageman, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Sebastian?
Here.
Mr. Elam?
Here.
Whoa. Mrs. Donahue?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here.
Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Before we approve the agenda tonight, I need to ask if there are any additions.
Yes, I have one.
Okay.
I'd like to make an addition to the agenda as 3B, comments from the president.
Okay. Does anyone else have any additions?
I was just looking at clarifying under number 11, under discussion E, old business. We had discussed previously about work session changes, so I just wanted to kind of go over those, discuss that there.
Yes, that would be
In old
great.
business.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, can I have a motion to approve the amended agenda or the agenda with these additions?
I'll move.
Thank you, Mrs. Donahue. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, Mrs. Hageman, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Elam?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian?
Yes. Up first, we have Mr. Jason Cook, our technology director, for a presentation. Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. Thank you. We need to approve the minutes from the previous meetings, March 14th and March 20th. There were a few minor changes Mrs. Donahue and I made. Did not affect the content, just a few little procedural issues. May I have a motion to approve those minutes, please?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. King. May I have a second?
I'll move.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Donahue. Any further discussion? All right, Mrs. Hageman, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian?
Yes.
Mr. Elam?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Cook, apologize. And you said you wanted a document up, so let's see if I can find that. My laptop is not.
While you're pulling that up, I'm just going to kind of review the Chromebook proposal for this year, as well as I hadn't really gotten to give kind of a review of what we've accomplished since I've been here over the past 2 years. So I'm going to give just a few highlights on those as well. And then at the end, I'll take any questions you have about basically anything that we discuss. So first of all, just a handful of bigger items that we've accomplished since we've been here. We completed the installation of all the new switches, wireless access points, including a wireless access point in every single classroom. We also installed new servers, and 2 new servers where our last ones were over 8 years old. We completed the successful installation of those, and they are up and running. We completed the changeover of a new phone system. It's still a little bit ongoing with a couple of features that we just need to finish implementing, as well as completed we negotiated a combination printer copier contract with Woodhall. Our previous one was with Mom, and it was actually 2 separate contracts that overlapped of a year. Now we're on one contract for 5 years, which is pretty standard for a printer copier contract. Also contracted with a student information system integration system that auto provisions our student accounts and then we were able to use that same system to auto-create our staff accounts. And then additionally, we used the same system to do the automatic translation for the Ukrainian refugee students that came this fall. We hired 2 additional staff members in my department, intern Ian Beeksma and our network and systems administrator, Matt Reed. Let's see. And we've also maintained our budget by utilizing ESSER funds and making smart purchases, collectively saving the district over $100,000 in various cost savings and contract negotiations. A couple of the future items that we would like to do, in addition to many others, is an upgrade of our camera system, an intercom and paging system upgrade, completing a multi-factor authentication schedule for all staff, creating a detailed 5-year technology forecast, and improving the overall live stream and audio for Bethel Hall. Now, as regarding the Chromebook proposal, I hope everybody got to review that and come up with any questions that they may have. Basically, I had emailed vendors for the purchase for this year. This year was a little bit different than going forward and the last year, as I'm trying to get us on a regular cycle of replacement. So this year we are purchasing 400 Chromebooks, 30 tablets because we have a gap of tablets that we need. We need one more class set for a 7th first grade classroom. We're purchasing additional cases for those tablets, as well as redoing all the cases for the middle school, whereas that is our highest break rate. I was recommended by a couple of different technology directors at other districts, a couple of brands that significantly lowered their break rate for middle school. So we are purchasing 600 of those to kind of replace everything in middle school. Additionally, we were purchasing a handful of extra cases, about 200, to give the freshmen a fresh start with their Chromebooks as well. Are there any questions regarding what I had mentioned in the technology review or anything in the Chromebook proposal?
These Chromebooks are coming out of the ESSER funds, is that correct?
Correct.
If you remember, we approved that back a while ago, and it was somewhere buried in my brain.
We had,
Yeah, I just wanted to remember back when we voted in September, maybe, so it's been a while, but the ESSER funds cover the Chromebook purchase. I just wanted to refresh because it wasn't on the forefront of my brain.
the approval amount was about $138,000, if I recall correctly. So we're a bit under budget, which is always good.
Jason, I wanted to ask, how are the Chromebooks that we purchased last year, how are they holding up? I'm asking that because I did see a note in there that the company that has been selected for the bids and everything, that they have been repairing a lot of ours. So I'm just wondering, are they not holding up well? Are they older versions, or what are you sending back to be repaired to this company as well?
The majority of what is repaired are the older Chromebooks, yes. We have essentially about 5 different models of Chromebooks if you include the Chrome tablets. We have 3 different HP models, and we have 1 Dell model, and then the Chrome tablets. The HP models are the oldest ones that we have. We actually have, they're called G6s, G8s. We actually have 2 versions of G6s, I'm sorry, and then G8s. The G6s, I think we do see most of the brakes there as well. But again, a lot of the brakes are coming from middle school, and so we're hoping these new cases will kind of help to reduce that significantly.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not sure if you showed it. I know you had a 5-year plan laid out. I don't know if everybody got a chance to see that or.
That's on the second page of that same document.
Okay.
Yeah. Just keep scrolling down. A little bit further. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, it's right.
Yep, there it is.
There it is. Yeah, I wanted everybody else to make sure they saw.
So yeah, the 5-year plan, every year 5th grade would be getting new devices, and also 9th grade. And then 5th grade and 9th grades would move up with them for 4 years. And then at the end of, this is all in this document, at the end of the senior year, the seniors would have the option to take those, at the same thing with the 8th grade year as well. That would reduce our overall inventory, give some additional value, because these devices usually have somewhere, depending on when you buy them and everything, when they were manufactured, anywhere from 6 to 7 years of life in them. So this would allow the students to have a device at their home once they hit those grade levels, that they can just keep, and it's theirs. And then each year we would be purchasing a new, in addition to the 5th and 9th grade, we would purchase a progressing elementary grade as well.
Yeah, thank you for going through that.
No problem.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I would just say thank you for at least showing us a plan, right? So that we could do some percentage-wise increases in the purchase of the Chromebooks versus extremely large purchases, and $300,000, $400,000 to replace all of them. I think it will probably reduce some workload as well with the newer ones coming in, rotating through. And also, I believe it's great that we would be able to transition these, especially with the seniors moving on, allow them to take them with them as a way for us to continue to move the product, but not have such a huge cash to try and go back through and recycle, and the time it takes to do all of those things, that it's actually saving us money by doing that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, I had a few math updates, numeric updates. They're some fun projects I kind of did on the side. And I have to thank Mrs. Hageman, because without her exceptional numbers, I wouldn't have been able to put these together. The first one is the building project. One of the things that excites me about the building project is we borrowed $28.5 million at a 2.88% interest rate in October of 2020. Many of you are well aware that we did not go back to taxpayers for bond issue. And so I asked our public finance representative, what would it cost if we went back today? The interest would have basically doubled. Our interest rate would be at 4.81% if we had gone out in late March. We would have paid an additional approximately $12.3 million in interest. And he put this note down: our annual cost would have been an additional $400,000 payment. So by getting it at one of the lowest points in probably modern history, we saved taxpayers a lot of money. And you can see the last line, our total debt service from 2020 is $43.3 million. If financed currently, it would be around $55.4 million. And that includes, when it says total net debt service, it's par value plus the total interest less the lease payment account. So that's that. I just wanted to let the board see that because I had done some separate research. The second thing is there's always concern. I've never, at least since I've been here, I've never heard anybody say, Bethel underpays its administrators. I almost always hear the other statement that Bethel overpays its administrators. So I wanted to just put a comparison together. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, this just made sense to me. Most of our administrators have their master's degrees. They have to get their educational leadership, principalship. And so I just took their yearly rate and their days worked and figured out a daily rate. You'll see comparable this is generic, not designed to point anyone out, just a generic rate. A teacher with the master's plus 30 at step 10 makes a daily rate of $350. A new administrator with master's plus 30, if their yearly rate's $90,000, makes a daily rate of $367. So $17 more a day to become an administrator. Now, I said, well, what would happen if a teacher could teach all year? We know that can't happen because kids have off in the summer, but if we were able to somehow employ a teacher year-round, a hypothetical teacher with master's plus 30 would earn a yearly rate of $85,673 versus a new administrator $90,000. So I just wanted to share those numbers with the board and the community. Okay, the third thing I wanted to discuss was our superintendent search. K-12 Consulting's conducted several superintendent searches for us, or at least 3, I think, since I've been on the board. They basically provided 2 searches for the price of 1. Bethel paid $0 for K-12 conducting our interim search. And one of the benefits of having the consulting firm conduct the search is they do this wonderful survey. And if I find a screen with the webpage on, I'm going to go to www.bethelk12.org, and I'm going to pull up, I'm going to search for search profile. And this is one of my favorite parts of the superintendent search, but you'll see we have the 2019 superintendent search profile online and the most recent 2022 search profile online. So if you haven't been out to read those, you might just want to check those because there's some really, especially as we grow, there's some really fascinating information in there and where we're at as a community. All right, let me get back to my, all right, and just to give some other data, a former school board member of one of our neighboring school districts stated several years ago their district spent $20,000 conducting a superintendent search. Bethel spent significantly less than that in 2023, approximately $13,700, and that was taken directly off the February financials. Okay, legal fees, because I've been asked by many people what the legal fees are. I thought we'd take an opportunity to present those. Mrs. Hageman earlier this year put legal fees together for the last 4 years, budgeted versus what we've spent versus the increase. And what I want to focus on is our 3 active lawsuits. To date, Bethel Schools has spent $41,130 on those 3 active lawsuits. That $41,130 figure does not include the costs of the 4th lawsuit that was withdrawn, nor do these figures reflect insurance coverage of the majority of legal fees of these active lawsuits. Our insurance is covering us on these lawsuits, and we'll probably see a large premium increase when that's renewed, or at least I'm expecting that. So don't think it's free, but insurance is covering a substantial portion of those costs. And lastly, road widening and on State Route 201. I know it's frustrating, right? We've got all this time in school in the summer. Why did we pick May of 2022 to do the road widening? Well, initially, I personally had hoped we could widen the road in the summer of 2022. This didn't occur because, well, the utility pole removal took a lot longer than expected, and in fact, the cable lines are still up. They have a week to get them removed. So we're hoping vigorously that gets accomplished. The power companies were much more prompt in handling their situation, but the cable companies have taken their time to get the cable lines moved. It also takes a long time for ODOT to approve the permits, and some of that was on our end. We changed specs, but every time you resubmit specs to ODOT, the 90-day window resets. So it took close to a year to get the approval for the permits from ODOT. The district did suggest spring break 2023 for the road closure, but the asphalt plants weren't open yet. So Peterson Construction, actually, again, I'll put plug in for Peterson because they've just done a fabulous job for us, suggested we consider closing the entire road rather than having it just open single lane, and they thought they could save us in excess of $100,000. They did credit us that back to us in contingency funds. So we did receive $100,000 plus in cost savings, and that's the difference in Bethel's elementary school having bleachers in the elementary gym and a rolling steel door between the gym and the cafeteria to have noise reduction, which is a pretty big deal in my opinion. So anyways, it's scheduled for the first 2 weeks of May. The project will take longer than 2 weeks. It's just that's the portion when the road will be completely closed. And I'll let Mr. Crispin talk more about that, but I just wanted to put that out to the board because we're all in different meetings, and I kind of pulled some figures together. Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to public participation, I think. First up, we have Mrs. Brewer.
Is this on? Okay. All right, mine is under Section 8, Item B, Administrative Contracts. Based on the Ohio checkbook for 2022, some of our administrative positions on the agenda for tonight for approval will be earning a significant pay raise of 15 to 20% for the next 3 years. Does this increase stay the same percentage for all 3 years of the contract? For example, certified staff received a whopping 4.25 raise spread out over a 3-year contract. Will these positions be receiving that percentage increase every year for the next 3-year contract, or is the salary listed tonight going to be the same for the next 3 years? We believe the people in these positions are excellent in their jobs and are needed to run the school. We expect the Board of Education to show the same courtesy to the Bethel Education Association members with the opening of negotiations next school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brewer. Mrs. Kiplinger.
All right, I had a couple of things under 6B, personnel. You're showing vacancies, filled positions, and then newer transfers positions. So on the vacancies, are these new positions, or are these ones that are being vacated by current staff? In the filled column, are these included in the vacancy numbers, or are they on their own? And is a transfer meaning they're just transferring from one grade to another? So if you could explain the vacancies, what are they? Additional teachers, bus drivers, secretarial, et cetera. Does this include the special education secretary that's on the agenda to be hired tonight? Also wondering why we're choosing to hire a special education secretary. Who will they report to? And I'm assuming that it is for all K-12 students. On item number 7B, the musicians and accompanists, I believe this should be 100% funded by the music boosters. Also, I'm looking at the effective dates, which are April 1st, which has already passed, so I'm unclear as to how it could be retroactive. Has someone already promised these people that they would be paid? And why are we not utilizing alumni or other just volunteers in the community? Also on the administrator contracts, is this an early extension for these contracts? When is their current contract up? What is the percentage of increase for each? And I also had the same question as Mrs. Brewer as to whether or not this was consistent throughout the entire 3 years, or if it would go up as well. And what is the effective date of those? On the 8G, extended days for the guidance counselors, I'm just questioning why we need 15 days. I think in the past, it's usually been 10, maybe, if that. So it seems excessive. We have more guidance counselors now. We have more social workers now. So, and what is the cost then to the district? On the proposed service contract, again, the dates on this contract are 1/1/23 to 6/30/23. Have we already used some of these dates? $650 a day for 40 days. There's only 53 days left in the school year. And who are they coaching? Are they coaching teachers, staff, or students? This was signed 3/15/23, so I'm just concerned about, like, is this already happening? And then the last one is the Chromebooks. The cost to the district is a lot. I'm not a fan of the one-on-one initiative, certainly not a fan for one-on-one with young 5 kindergarten students. I think all of the elementary probably need less screen time than more, like like to see them get back to some paper pencil tasks. I think it's been very well documented that students learn better if they write something down, they remember it more. This is only for 400 Chromebooks this year at a cost from 120 to 160,000. So you add another 40 or 50,000 on top of that, which would be for the 600 that is being proposed. That's a lot of money every year to be paying out for when kids probably already have a computer in their pocket and spend a lot of screen time at home. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kiplinger. Mrs. Reese.
Good evening, Board. I have a few things. First, I did not get to stay for the entire meeting on the work session, so I missed the conversation about moving the meeting, which is, I hope, what Jacob's talking about earlier. My request is please move it back to the first Tuesday, second Monday, because that worked for everybody. I just had a question. There was a reference to PBIS, if you could just explain what that stands for. Some questions about the new position. Well, I don't know if they're new or not, but the special ed secretary is a new position, and also the ESL coaching services. It was supposed to be when we have new positions that we get a job description for them and that they're approved by the board, and I didn't see any of that happening. And again, I had the same question, what are the ESL coaching services? Who are they coaching? For the Chromebook proposal, I think it's a lot of money, and I know we're on a 5-year cycle, but we should be on a 6-year cycle. So we should consider changing that to 6 years, because that is well within the life cycle of the Chromebooks. And if we're going to give these, we had talked about giving them to the seniors before. Well, not giving them, we were going to charge a fee. I was wondering if there was going to be a fee involved in that in this new proposal. For the musicians and accompanists, is traditionally paid by the boosters, and I believe that it still should be. It should be volunteers, and they should not become school employees. I don't know what the implications of this are liability-wise and all the other things. It just seems to be muddying the waters of the way it currently is. And also, thank you for adding all the things that I've asked for as far as steps and the effective date and things like that for people that we're hiring. Could you also mark in the future which positions are new and which is filling a vacancy? Because as we continue to grow and have the new building, it's very difficult for us to tell who's new and who's a replacement or replacing somebody that's gone. For the administrative increases, just a reminder that the staff has already been approved for a 2% raise, and that included the administration. This is not about the people. Again, I'm with everybody else. I think they do a fine job, but you guys know me, I'm a numbers person. So the AD numbers are 17.5% increase, which I totally do not understand. Communications is a 9.3% increase, and maintenance is a 10.7% increase, while the teachers and staff are receiving 2%. I can somewhat see the maintenance increase because there is going to be additional work there because we're getting a new building and probably some additional staff to do the cleaning and such. But we have always been a Me Too school, so whatever the teachers got, the staff get. So I'm not for these huge raises. I just don't understand it. For the high school or middle school furniture, it was unclear. The section was labeled middle school furniture, but the document was labeled high school furniture, and all it was a list of the 3 bids. So this is a lot of money. I was wondering if you could tell us how many classrooms this covers. It seems like a lot, since we're not, since we're moving the elementary kids out. I'm just wondering what this is covering.
Julie, I will answer that. It is middle school furniture. It was titled wrong,
Okay.
but it is for the middle school furniture.
Okay, well, either way then, I guess if you could maybe figure out how many classrooms it's covering and let us know that. And appreciate the comments from the president, but it didn't address any concerns that I raised in the past at these sessions.
Thank you, Mrs. Reese. Okay, so now we are ready for our treasurer to give her report, and we'll start with the monthly financial report. Mrs. Hageman?
So let me apologize. I don't have much of a voice, but we're going to do our best. I've been out and I've been out of the office because I've been ill, but we're balanced, so that was good. And so the bank and the books balance. So if we want to scroll on to the next one. We got everything I expected to get in March with the exception of homestead and rollback, which comes from the state. Now, last year we got it March 31st. So it might have been, me trying to, be optimistic that we would get it in March again, but we didn't. We got it in April. So as we go on, you're going to see some big deltas and some differences in the percentages, and most of that is going to be due to that one day that we didn't get the homestead and rollback revenues in March. It's a timing issue. So if we want to scroll ahead, that's okay. So this just shows the differences in the month of March. The next one, I think, is going to show us year-to-date. Yeah. So it looks like there are huge differences, and the last one is compared to the overall budget. I expected us to have received 85.08% of our total revenues, and we're receiving 87.6%. So we're actually ahead of the bar, which is good, by almost 2%. So that's always good. I expected us to spend, if we can. Scroll down. Yeah, 73.97%. And we've actually spent about 75.25, so we're just a tad bit over there as well. So it's hard to estimate these things as they come down the pike, but we're doing pretty good. And we'll continue to keep an eye on things. So if we scroll down a little bit. This is my financial summary. If anybody wants to take the time to look through and explains the differences and deltas that exist in each category and why. As far as where our money's coming from and where our money's going in the charts and how that information looks as far as what I expected, what my benchmark was for this time and period, and where we are actually. Anybody that has any questions, please feel free to email or give me a call, and I'll do my best to address any concerns that they have. So unless anyone has any questions specifically about the monthly board reports, that's all I have at this time. There's also the investment report that shows you where we're at and what we're collecting currently for investments. A cash summary report, I'm sorry, is all our cash and what funds they are, because school funding can't be simple, but we have all these different buckets of money, and these are all the different available cash that's available at this time. So, for your review. So, when you see the bank rec and it says we have $19 million, that's not all operating money. That's grant money, that's other monies that we have total. Then, of course, the detailed check register for the month of March. That'll be updated to the checkbook as soon as your approval is available. And then the amended certificate and appropriations recap for the month of March as far as what our estimated revenues are and what our estimated budgets are. And I think we have one new account if we want to do approval of the account item D, which is an additional grant from Tip City Foundation for PBIS, which is Positive Behavior Intervention Systems. I'm not an educator, so I apologize. I know what it means, but I didn't know what it stood for. So PBIS in the classroom for $700. I need board's approval to create that new account. And then that's all I have for the month of March. Thank you, Mr. Crispin.
And we'd like to thank the Tip City Foundation for granting us that $700. We always appreciate getting their grants in. Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Hageman from the board? Okay, thank you. May I have an approval for the consent agenda for the treasurer's reports?
I'll move.
Thank you, Mr. Elam. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. King. Any further discussion? Mrs. Hageman, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Sebastian?
Yes.
Mr. Elam?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next up is the superintendent's report. Mr. Crispin?
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, board, and all our visitors. Y'all had a lot of questions tonight, and if I don't hit answers, give me a call, shoot me an email, and I'll get them to you, but that was a lot. I was writing them down as they were coming, and answers are in my head, so I think I got some of them, but if I don't hit them, please give me a call. Important dates, so we'll start off with what's behind us, what just finished, which was an incredible musical, Shrek, and we had great turnout, and
Look at that picture.
extra thrill of having fire alarm go off on Sunday due to a bad sensor, but what a great performance. I think one of the longer, if not the longest musical we've put on here, and our kids were awesome. So kudos to Laura Wolford and company, cast and crew, just awesome.
That's all right.
Obviously, we're here tonight. Thursday, we have the Music Boosters, cookie dough delivery and pickup. And then, sorry, my mom should know better. So next Monday kicks off Military Child Week, and you'll see some stuff coming out next week. Each day, or later this week, each day next week is designated as Red, White, and Blue Day, or Dress as Your Favorite Service Day. Looking forward to that. I've never participated in that, so looking forward to that. Then Saturday, the 29th, we have prom at Boonshaw. And then Monday, May 1st, the road widening project begins. And probably the biggest thing you need to know is that school traffic needs to, if you're trying to get to the school, you need to come in from the south and allow for extra time, knowing that everybody in the morning is trying to come the same way. So we've already talked to administration. Administration will be talking to teachers, obviously tardies and that kind of thing. We are going to be understanding as we deal with a new traffic pattern for such a short amount of time. But please look at those maps, and if folks have any questions, please give us a call. Friday, May 5th, then, is signing day, and then we're back at it with a work session, which is a different date because of a conflict. We May 11th, and that will be in the Media Center.
And that will be at 5:30 p.m., correct?
Yes.
So we need to get that added, just to, and eventually we will have a resolution once we figure out what we need to adjust that work session meeting date, but it's not there yet. So this will be a 1-month change, but the intent is to make it permanent with a resolution.
Okay, thank you. On to 6B with personnel, just a summary of, we've had 19 certificated vacancies. 7 of those are due to new positions we've added to decrease class sizes going into next year, and also to improve our services with our EL students. The rest are, I think we have 3 resignations. If you count our retire rehires who are leaving us, that's another 2. They're technically resignations, and then the rest are just straight resignations. And one internal transfer within there. So I can post that if folks want to keep track with us, but that's for our certificated staff. Classified staff, we're at a minimum, we're at 14, could be up to 18. We're still trying to figure out what our custodial needs are going to be for the new building and how we're going to balance that out. Currently, we have 14 certified, 14 of those 19 filled, pending everything goes well tonight, and then 4 classified filled. And that's where we're going to be turning our attention to in the next month. 6C, enrollment. Let's go with the March 2023. So again, this is the monthly where we were at the end of March versus where we were at the end of May. And again, our number is up, 1935. And then if you continue to scroll, I think we have our running monthly list, which was requested. The only thing different in the running list is I don't have the young fives at the top. And if you're looking for comparisons, like you go on ODE, look at the report card and look up our enrollment numbers, you won't find our young five numbers in there. So that's why sometimes I put them in, sometimes I don't, especially when we're looking at that comparison, if that makes sense. Look at the first enrollment projection chart right at the top. So I gave this to the board a couple months ago when our enrollment was at, well, no, I did update the numbers, and so I'm resubmitting it to the board. Again, just trying to get an idea of what, if we increase 10 students per grade per year, what that looks like to our enrollment and how that flows through our buildings. And so you can see that the elementary kind of levels out if those numbers hold true. I think a lot of us think that's might be unrealistic with all the lots yet to be built. But we don't hit that 1,000 mark, but it's a full building for sure. Where it gets a little nerve-wracking for us is how fast our numbers grow at the middle school and high school, which is why we're doing the migration into those rooms that are being vacated by the elementary. So if you go back, please. We just had, go ahead and open that next chart. So last Monday we started kindergarten registration, and we had 104, we didn't get through them all. We still have 30 or 40 yet to go. We had 140 signed up. So I plugged in that 140 number just to see what it did to our numbers, because we think that number might actually get bigger. But anyways, and just watching that kind of go through and the numbers go up. So at some point we need to keep talking about, well, we're going to have to keep talking about our migration and how we work with the middle school and high school, and see what happens to the, fortunately the way the building is designed, the K-5 building, we can move things around as we have bigger grades and gaps in the enrollment. So anyways, submitted for your review. Questions about dates, personnel, enrollment information? All right, we'll roll on to 7, recommendations. Class.
I was just going to ask, I'm sorry, Mr.
Yep.
Crispin.
No.
Sorry. Have you had any conversations with the developer recently to know what, okay.
I have not. Soon.
Well, I just wondered if they were sharing, if the annexation takes place, what type of housing, if there'd been any revision to the types of housing. And I just wondered if you were in contact with them recently.
No. I had heard rumors that maybe more to condos than homes, but unverified, only rumor.
That's okay. Thank you.
7A, we have a recommendation for two classified staff. One is a substitute who's currently employed as a bus driver, but is picking up some extra jobs for us, and we will be, if approved, we'll be paying him at our classified substitute rate. Then Julia Wood, we're recommending to be our secretary for the Student Services Department or Special Education. So that job description is simply the secretary's job description and falls under that job classification on our classified salary schedule that's been approved by the board. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a district our size without some kind of administrative assistant or secretary with the director of student services or director of special ed, whatever the title they might have. And again, having been in smaller districts, had those. There's just a lot of going on, a lot of paperwork, a lot of meetings, a lot of compliance that could use some assistance with. So Julia Wood comes to us with some school experience at Mad River, and looking for the board's approval to bring her on board. So we've had lots of debate about the item B, musicians and accompanists, and it is what it is. So we're looking to find a sweet spot here in balancing these costs with the boosters. My understanding is it seems like, at least as of late, we've had to maybe have more adult musicians, hence the cost has gone up. There are concerns on the fiscal side. If we want to get into that again with Mrs. Hageman, we can. Given that we've had a lot of conversation, there's still some questions. I've kind of put the parameter on it for let's get this figured out for this year, and then have some more in-depth conversations with Mrs. Wolford, Mr. Spears, and the booster officers. So I left it on there, put in those parameters after making the changes from the work session, and again, still conversation, but we've had folks perform for us, and we need to get them compensated along with the help with the boosters, and then figure out what we want to do going forward. Those are the two recommendations under classified personnel.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Hageman, Mr. Crispin or Mrs. Hageman on these two items? Sorry about that.
Sorry, Tina. I know your voice is
That's
weak today.
okay.
I was just going to ask, are we really able to pay for these folks? Has anybody presented any type of invoice or giving you any idea of what the cost would be for this time period?
I haven't seen anything as of yet. One of the things I sort of wanted to touch upon is the Ohio Ethics Commission recently had a ruling, and when I say recently, within the last decade, that says outside agencies, including your boosters and PTOs, may not pay your employees. It's not allowed. It's an ethics violation. Your teachers could lose licenses. So it's not a matter of muddying the waters. It's a matter of making sure we follow the rules. So what I've asked, and I did speak to the booster treasurer today, is if they want to make a donation to the district, and then the district will then compensate, which is what Wright State University does when a teacher hosts a student teacher, and then I ask you guys to approve a stipend. I'll reduce that by the employer's taxes and then pay out what is, needs to be paid to the teacher for their services. It's a way of making sure, or keeping ourselves as well as the teachers out of hot water, because we don't want it to look like they're accepting money that they shouldn't be, because anything above a $25 gift card anymore is considered an improper gift. and can put any of our licenses at risk. So, I don't remember the exact Ohio Ethics Commission ruling. I'd have to go back and look because it's been a while. But that's precisely why we've asked that the board approve the stipend, and for full transparency, we want to make sure everybody's aware. But no, I do not know how much that's going to cost at this time. And as I explained to the boosters group, this is a one-time each year kind of thing. So if we can't do it next year, then we're not going to do it next year. If the boosters can't assist us, then, it's something that the board would have to look at and review each year. Does that make sense?
It,
No?
Can I just ask a clarifying question? So are you saying that the accompanists and the orchestra folks are employees of the school currently?
I'm not sure. I'd have to know exactly. I think one of them is Donna Clements, and she's a substitute. So you cannot receive a W-2 and a 1099 from the same employer. So she would be considered an employee, and that would have to run through payroll. So that I know of at this time, off the top of my head, yes. Mm-hmm.
No, that's incorrect. Mrs. Rusk was playing in the band as well.
Okay, yes.
And so
And
was
Mr.
Mr. Fugate. So we had 3 current
Oh.
school employees who were playing. And we don't want to put their license at risk, obviously. The whole goal is to have boosters pay the majority of this. The plan is not to have this absorbed by the school, but those details need to be worked out. And like Mrs. Hageman said, this is a one-time to get us through this year, and then we need to sit down, or the administration needs to sit down with music boosters and get something ironed out that's a little more formal. And what maybe with limits in, I know Mrs. Donahue, you were concerned like how many musicians and all that, but that doesn't need to take place at this level, in my opinion.
I heard you. Go ahead, Jay. So it is in fact true, though, the teachers can take no pay, right, and volunteer their time without being in trouble. Is that true, Tina?
Well, that's the Ethics Commission ruling. They can volunteer their time as long as they're not volunteering for their same job duties that they're being compensated for. So you can't say, I'm going to volunteer as a food service worker if I'm a food service worker. I can't say that I'm volunteering to drive a bus if I'm a bus driver. I can't say that I'm volunteering as a tutor if I'm a teacher, because those jobs are the same jobs. You can certainly say, I'm a principal and I'm going to volunteer to be, provide accompanying.
Play the drums.
Thank you. That's fine, because it's nowhere in your job description as a principal that you have to have that skill set. But so there are a lot of rules now that weren't in place years ago that we have to follow. So is it true? You can volunteer districts, you can do all of that, but when you're an employee of a district, the Ohio Ethics Commission says that we have to have the money donated to the district and been paid through the district.
For everybody, or just the teachers that are already employed?
Should be all employees. It should be anybody that's considered an employee. So if you're a volunteer, you've never been an employee of the district, and you want to, and then they say, hey, we're going to give you $500, you're not my employee. and the booster groups may do whatever they want, but if you're an employee of the district, that's a different scenario.
Right. So, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to waste time or anything, but I'm just asking. A person who is receiving money as a donation from the music boosters, not to get paid, but as a donation, you're saying those are one and the same definition?
That's not my decision to make. That would be the Ethics Commission and the Ohio Attorney General's.
Gotcha.
And if you want to have that argument with the ODE, you have it. I'm not going to go. I am not an attorney, nor do I play one on TV, nor do I want to be. So I would just say, in my world, if that risked my license, I wouldn't do it. But that's just my personal opinion.
Thank
So
you. I'm just trying to understand.
Mhm.
Thanks. And well, I'll let Jacob go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine, Natalie. What I was going to say was after we had talked about it in the work session and receiving information from another accompanist that does it throughout the entire region, these prices are actually about the middle of the road, actually, which I, looking at it and not educated in this field, thought that it was extremely high dollars. It is not. So it is very middle of the road pay. One of the things that I liked about this is that we clarified its purchase services, but this would allow us to establish at least what is our maximum at this point right now as we go forward. So as we look at having those conversations with how us and the music boosters and those individuals that would assist us, at least they already know what we are maximally willing to pay for those services. They can then make their own assessment of whether they want to even have a conversation or not.
Right, and booster organizations or PTO organizations are indeed organizations unto themselves, and we can't dictate what they will or will not pay. So if a booster group wants to give $750, then they're certainly willing, and if they want to, they're certainly able to do so, and we pass those along if the board approves it. But it's something that the board then has to approve. This is just, in my opinion, a safety net to say this is our max, and if the boosters want to give more, they certainly can. If they want to give less, they can certainly do that as well.
Thank you. And I don't have any issue with the amount of pay. I'm sure it's fair market or that it would be established that way, but I just think this sets a bad precedence and gets us away from volunteering. Plus, there's as incredibly important as these folks are to the music program, there are a lot of other people that have just as much invested time, costume makers, stage crew, people who do tickets. I mean, the list goes on, and I just don't know where we draw the line. And so that's where I'm at. Thank you.
I don't want to say, well, you all know that I worked here a long time, and I was the director in part or in full of 30 musicals here. Over time, you can get former students that might want to come, they don't get to play anymore. They come back and we all have a good time. They play. You might have people that worked at band camp and they had such a good time, they might come back and play for a little bit. You can increase that level of volunteerism in that way. What you really want to have is high school students playing in the musical, but it's an extra thing. It's not a grade, anything like that. So you can ask them. If they don't want to, then you got to find somewhere else, someone else. What I wanted to impress on everybody at the work session was about the pianist. The pianist is by far the most important member of the pit orchestra or band, whatever you want to call it. If the part calls for an oboe player and you don't have an oboe player, then the piano player plays it. We can say that for all those different instruments. So the piano player is someone who you must have confidence in, and that must be a very, very fine player. When I was in high school, we had classmates of mine that could play like that, and they were very fine players, Donna being one of them. I don't know that we have that level of piano players anymore in the student body. I don't know. But according to my friend who works at 5 different schools, everybody kind of does it their own way, but the music boosters or band boosters, whatever they might be, do contribute heavily in those aspects.
Thank you, everyone, for the discussion and comments.
May I ask that we pull that out, that particular item B for separate vote, please.
And if I could interrupt again, as I mentioned at the work session, those people that do costumes, build sets, et cetera, normally have a stake in the play. They normally have a kid in the play, and they want to help. Or maybe they did have kids in the play, and they want to continue to help. And those people, 90% of the time, unless the boosters wanted to do something nice for them, which we normally did, they did it for nothing.
So if we vote on each of these items individually, can we just call the vote, or do I have to put them on? Can we just call the vote for each item separately, Mrs. Hageman?
You can certainly do that, yeah.
Okay, is that okay with everyone if we call the vote for item A? Mrs. Hageman, will you call the vote to approve employed classified staff under item 7A, please?
Mrs. Sebastian?
Yes.
Mr. Elam?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-0. Now we will vote on item 7B, musicians and accompanists. This is effective April 1st through May 25th of this year, 2023. Mrs. Hageman, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Elam?
May we be more specific in this? This is for musicians and accompanists. For the board to assume how much of this, we don't know that, correct?
It's approving the rates. Item 7B is what we're approving.
I see, thank you. Yes.
Just to confirm, it's yes? Yes. Mrs. Sebastian?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
No.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1. Thank you for the discussion and comments from everyone. Now we will move on to certified personnel recommendations from Mr. Crispin.
Thank you. Item A, we have certified personnel. These are will be folks new to the district. Of the positions listed there, the 5, I'll just go through them. The high school science position is a replacement for a resignation. The same with the 4th grade position. The ELL position was a position we'd advertised through the summer, went unfilled, so we were able to fill it this year. The K-5 ELL position is a new position per the recommendation and the structure, the numbers that I had shared with the board. I think that might have been February meeting. And then the 7th grade ELA social studies position is also a new position to help reduce class sizes at the middle school. So item B, we have something different, again, trying to get more transparent with what we're doing. We've listed our 1-year contract recommendations, our continuing contract. We really don't need recommendations, but again, just trying to be transparent. And it's also helped us with our record keeping. And then those are both scripted by our negotiated agreement. So it's very easy to, well, should be easy to use the charts given and figure out step and education and assign a salary for the following year. Every district's a little bit different when it comes to administrative contracts. There are some folks that have hard and fast salary schedules. There are some districts that hire, when they hire in new folks, they hire, whether they're new or experienced, they come in at the rate of the current person. And there are others that don't have any. We don't have any. And so we had 3 administrators up for contract. In other words, theirs was expiring this summer. And how I go about deciding where we're at is looking at the market. And all 3 of these I looked, looking at the maintenance supervisor, a little harder to get that kind of information. That job's done differently and cut up differently depending on districts, big and small. Athletic directors, pretty easy to go to Buckeye Institute and look at area districts, what they've been compensating their athletic director, going on ODE, looking at getting the list of similar districts according to their methodology, going to Buckeye Institute, getting those salaries, and doing a comparison and seeing where our person is in relation to those market groups. Communication director, kind of in between both of those. Not everybody has them. Some do, some don't, some big, some small. And so we had to dig a little bit further. But, none of these recommendations, if you do that kind of homework, is in any way excessive. Actually, some of them, as far as our athletic director, when you look at those comparison groups, that position was currently being paid at $317 a day. The average in the area, big schools and small, $379. Districts of like size around the state of Ohio, it was $399. Thing was, that's 2019 data. It's 4-year-old data. And so this recommendation is at the bottom of the area still. So I get that it's a big increase. I understand the history of this district, that we've not compensated that position probably competitively. I'm trying to move us a little bit closer. And the same with both positions. And again, not about the people, but really about the position. And I spoke to the board before about, how our administrators fall in comparison to each other, and that really doesn't change where they're at. In other words, these folks aren't going to be paid more than principals and that type of thing. So relative to everybody on staff administratively, they still fit in the right spots, if that makes sense. And so I get the sticker shock, but doing the homework and looking at comparative data, I feel pretty comfortable in making these recommendations to the board. Going on to 8C, we have 2 teachers that we are making a recommendation for continuing contract. Item D, we have an adjustment for a salary schedule. E is the annual recommendation for supplemental to non-renew all of our supplemental contracts. And again, that's required by the Ohio's revised code. We have 2 resignations in item F. Caroline Lawson and Leah Wharton. That was a today ad for Miss Wharton. And so we appreciate both of their hard work and time here at Bethel Local Schools, and wish them good luck. And then finally, the extended days. That's the number of extended days that was approved for this year, and we're not increasing that amount, just sticking with 15. Usually, my experience has been counselors. It's usually 15 to 20, a week or two after school, a week or two before school to get things going. So more often than not, you see 20. So 2 and 2.
It's been 15 here for the last 2 to 3 years, if memory serves, because I know my first year here, we didn't approve it until later, so it was after my arrival in September when I started in August for the year prior. And then we tried to get it on the regular schedule, so it's in April or May with everyone else's contracts this year. And thank you to Mr. Swope who reminded me. I appreciate that. Sometimes we all need a little help. But it has been 15 days for those 2 guidance counselors for those past 3 years.
those are all the recommendations for certified personnel for the April meeting.
Great. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for certified personnel?
So move.
Thank you, Mr. King. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Elam. Discussion.
I have a couple of points, but for clarification, any of the raises, that would be no matter what the percentage is for our administrators, as we displayed, was a one-time raise, and then there would be potentially cost of living increases the remainder years of their contract. It's not.
Oh, we're not giving seven, no, that wouldn't fly. No, I mean, I love all
That-
three guys,
that-
sorry guys, but
that
you're not
was one
getting,
of the
no,
questions
no. It's a one-time for this year, and then the board has already approved 2% for all other administrators, if I remember, for this upcoming school year. And we don't get steps, it's just a basic 2%. And then any additional compensation increases will have to be board approved, because this is the last year that we have something in place for admin.
Thank you. Yeah, that was one of the questions that was asked. I didn't hear clarification on it, so I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and
Thank
that
you.
may be something we discuss in executive session at another time, but one of the problems here with keeping administrator pay competitive is we don't have a salary schedule, and I'll look to Mrs. Hageman and Mr. Crispin for their guidance. They've served in districts that are larger than us, because when we were small, it might have worked, but as we grow, when you've got 20 schools within a 30-mile radius, somebody can jump ship and make $10,000 to $20,000 more. Thankfully, and I'm very appreciative of the three administrators we're approving tonight, they want to stay here, but at what point do people stay and make less money? I mean, I think we do have to pay competitively.
Right, and one of the things I wanted to clarify with the new teacher's contract is we had 9 teachers receive a 12 to 15% raise. We had 15 teachers receive a 15% or higher raise. The highest was 17.08%, based on the original numbers we were using for our projections. But the annual increase would be less at that point. But that was including retro steps, as well as any percent increase. And I would say that while the step increases were retroed in that last contract, we didn't retro anything for the administrators during that time as well. But yes, we know as well, looking forward to BEA contract coming up next year, is the fact that we know that we are behind on pay and schedule, and look forward to coming to the table to try and rectify that in the best means possible, keeping the solvency of the district, obviously, as well as meeting objectives for the BEA as well. My thoughts, that's not everybody's.
Well, and it's just like every other business around, right? Inflation has caused prices to go up, and what salaries were 5 or 10 years ago. I mean, musical tickets were $10 and $12 this year. 10 years ago, what were they? $5 and $6? I mean, so I mean, we are aware of the market, and we're going to have to make some adjustments.
Mr. Crispin, did you address that these are contracts that were coming due? They're not early, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That was effective 1 August.
Yes.
Yeah, and somebody, I can't remember who, but I did want to address one other thing. Contracts for teaching staff go from what date?
They go from August to July.
They go
Sorry,
from August
through July.
And administrator contracts go from,
August through July as well, unless you're 12-month, which is like, I think Jacob and Todd are on 12-month, or close to. They go from July to June.
Just Todd.
Just Todd, July to June.
so almost everybody's August, I thought. Yeah.
Your contracts are not 12 months. Your contracts are 9 to 10 months, which is 184 days. Your pay is stretched over 12 months. And your contracts run from August through July.
Thank you for clarifying that. Is there further discussion?
I as well would like to thank Ms. Lawson and Mrs. Wharton for their service, and wish them good luck in the future.
Any other discussion? All right, Mrs. Hageman, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Sebastian?
Yes.
Mr. Elam?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Crispin, number 9A.
Number 9A is a recommendation for varsity boys basketball coach, Steve Pittman. Loads of experience, former UD Flyer, and we had a very competitive field, and I was fortunate enough to be involved with the finalists, for the 3 finalists. Yeah, it was, we'd have been good either way we went, but Mr. Pittman rose to the top, and I know the kids are excited about having Mr. Pittman be their head coach. There's a good buzz amongst the group.
Thank you. May I have a motion to accept Mr. Pittman as the varsity boys basketball coach?
I think it was
Oops.
impressive to see Don Donaher's name on the resume. Those of us
That took me back.
that were around back then
Mhm.
were impressed with that, yes.
May I have a motion?
I'll move.
Sorry.
I'll move.
You'll move. Thank you, Mr. Elam. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Donahue. Any further discussion? Mrs. Hageman, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Elam?
Yes.
Keep forgetting to turn on my mic. Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Sorry, I was calculating. So I'll say yes, but can we have follow-up discussion?
Okay.
Mrs. Sebastian?
Yes. Motion passes 4-0. Mr. King, go for it.
We don't, what step was he listed for?
This is step 9, and I did check the 23-24 schedule. That was the correct, to my knowledge, step. At step 9, which is the, if I understand the contract correctly, the last step for our athletics is step 9. Yeah, the final one. So, yeah, I learned something new myself.
My
or refreshed.
apologies. When I glanced at it, I thought it said step 7, so I went back. I didn't remember a 7, so I went back and looked, and
Yeah,
9 is it.
I did check all the steps tonight, so as far as I know, they were correct. All right, number 10.
Okay,
Recommendations
on
business
to
item.
business items. Thank you. We have lots of donations. You know, boards always like to accept donations, just like volunteers. Those donations help make us better. And in particular, we're getting a materials and installation, cost of installation donation from Safe Haven Defense. We have a parent in the district that is part of that company, and they install protective film, and they are going to donate protective film to bolster the film that's already there for our high school entrances to start. And as other stuff comes to available, we'll look to our elementary and then other entrances, but that's where we're going to start. So we appreciate their gift. Item B is an authorization to seek bids for 2 sets of bleachers. All right? Yep. Okay. So yes, we still need bleachers in the new building, in the gymnasium, and also visitor bleachers for the stadium. And so the gym bleachers may or may not come out of contingency funds. We're still working on that piece, and so we're kind of playing both sides of it right now. In the event that falls through, we can still solicit bids, and companies can bid those things separate. Item C then is a project that was decided upon by the board last spring, I believe, and that was to renovate the middle school restrooms. That's both restrooms, and that is floor, some of the plumbing, as well as partitions. Item D is recommendation to purchase middle school classroom furniture from Zimmerman School Equipment. And I can make the actual bids available. I'll figure out how to do that, but can't think of it right off the top of my head where we might put those things. But they are available for anybody who'd like to take a look at those. And the furniture, we have 7 classrooms that are currently elementary classrooms that are going to become middle school classrooms. And some of those 7 are for new teachers. Others will be filled with classroom teachers moving from the C hallway over, so as we expand some of our high school folks into that hallway. So again, a southern migration in this building. Item E is a 3-year renewal for Public School Works. Public School Works is our accident report system, as well as our annual trainings that we do with all of our staff, slips, trips, and falls, CPR re-ups, acceptable use policies, all of those things are put out by Public School Works. They're specific to, many of them are specific to us and our policies, and boy, would be lost without Public School Works.
Okay.
Chromebook purchase and F, you've already heard about. Purchase service agreement. This is, we utilized these services in the fall when we had all the new EL or the newcomers, and we were unable to fill those positions. And again, a couple of those positions went unfilled, and we need to continue. We have continued to use those services. Again, we don't intend to go beyond 30 days. The contract was originally written for 40 and times the 650, which is the going rate, unfortunately, and would put us over the $25,000 mark. And so don't intend to go there. Again, as stated earlier, we're almost to the end, and we haven't hit that mark yet, and I think we're going to be in good shape. Those are the business recommendations for the April meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Crispin. May I have a motion for the approval of the consent agenda for the business items, please?
I'll move.
Thank you, Mrs. Donahue. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. King. Discussion or comments? I do want to thank you. I know, Mr. Crispin, your plate has been overfull, but I do want to thank you for getting the bids together for the bleachers, because we're getting to the point that if we don't get them ordered, they won't be here in time. So I know we've had many discussions in our core meetings about the lead times on things. So I just want to say thank you to Natalie, who, along with Mr. Crispin, Mrs. Hagem, and myself, sits in every week in those meetings. So it's a lot of time. And Mr. Bird and Mr. Smith. So thank you for that. Any other comments or discussion? All right, if there's none, Mrs. Hageman, please call the roll.
Wait, hold
Oh,
on.
I'm sorry.
I was looking. Go ahead. Sorry, Jacob. The Public Works, how long have we used them?
How long has this district used them?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I will say it's a common thing that most districts use, especially as we get larger, because it can track who has and has not completed their required testing for the year and keeps us in compliance. So it is a common thing. Mr. Cook did look into some other providers, and they don't offer the same thing that's crafted for schools, quote unquote. And there wasn't a significant increase or decrease in costs. So we just thought we would continue with the Public School Works. So we did try to look elsewhere to see if maybe we could get a better deal at this point, and there's not one to be had at this time.
Okay.
10 to 15 years, maybe?
Yeah, it's
At
been
least.
a while. Yeah,
Right.
there you go,
Okay.
23 years, spoken
Grease.
by Mrs. Brewer.
Thank you both for the additional details. Thank you.
Mr. King, did you have additional? Okay.
I did not.
So, Mrs. Hageman, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Elam?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian?
Yes, motion passes 4-0. Discussion, we have a BEA update from Mrs. Henry and Brewer.
April is Military Child Month, so I do want to recognize all of the military children we have at the school district, but I also want to recognize the teachers that we have here that have spouses or loved ones that are recently deployed. Just know that we're thinking about you, and if you need any help, we got you. I also want to just say thank you to the teachers. April is testing month. Fun, fun, fun. You throw in 70-degree weather and then you throw in a 30-degree weather on a Monday, and who wants to test on that kind of day? But I just want to thank you for doing what you do day in and day out. It is 8:30 and you're here, so thank you. I wasn't gonna say anything, but I feel like I need to. Made a comment that we got a large amount of raises. Retro steps are not raises. Money owed to us due to a step freeze is not a raise. I have earned that money. I was frozen for 3 years. I got those back, and I was happy about that. But I do not consider that a raise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brewer. Mr. Lawson. Oh, wait, are we up for public participation? Just a minute, sorry. My mistake. Mr. Lawson, I'm going to have you wait. I skipped ahead. Facilities Committee is next. I'm sorry. All right, Facilities Committee, Mr. Crispin.
All right, let's go through the core write-up. Aluminum doors, this is the core report from last Monday's meeting. Aluminum doors entrance installation will begin in a couple of weeks. Roof metal trim, gutters, and downspout installation continues. Metal wall panels work also continues. Painting is ongoing. Ceiling grid installation continues in remaining rooms. Casework installation is ongoing in Area 9. Resinous flooring work in the restrooms will begin back up, I believe, next week. Additionally, installation of the kitchen flooring towards the end of April. Quartz tile and carpet flooring has begun in areas 5 and 6. Delivery of toilet partitions and toilet accessories are scheduled for later in the month. Metal lockers and classroom door deliveries are scheduled to begin this month. Overhead mechanical and electrical work along with in-wall rough-in work is ongoing throughout as needed. Exterior site finish work is ongoing with underground downspout drain piping, site concrete preparations, topsoil distribution, etc. State Route 201 road closure is scheduled to start May 1st. If you've missed that, we'll be looking to place asphalt pavement for it and the remaining lots on site towards the middle to end of May, along with the asphalt for the track. What's that all mean? The building's coming along nicely. It's on time, knock on wood. It's beautiful, the green paint, the honeycombs are on the walls, and some of the ceiling tiles, and it's going to be a really special place for our K-5 students and our staff. And very exciting to see it come together daily. There's new stuff. So we're excited about what's happening at our new building. We're getting the word out as best as we can about that closure. We know it's going to be, I mean, we already have traffic issues. We're already talking about how we can remedy our traffic issues for next year as we split. But now it's tough sledding, and those two weeks are going to be challenging. So again, just give yourself plenty of time in getting to and from school. Again, talked about the room usage, and we're taking over 7 elementary classrooms for the middle school, and a slow migration of the middle school into that area. We're also going to be moving the middle school administrative offices into what is currently the elementary offices. We'll be moving our guidance counselors from the high school into what is currently the middle school offices, administrative offices. That will be a more central location. I think it'll be a nice, maybe more confidential area for our kids to come and see our guidance counselors, as well as give our administrative folks room to grow, especially in the high school as they are getting ready to go through some serious growth here in the next couple of years. So I know originally planned, we've talked a little bit about furniture for the offices over at the elementary, and I think originally planned their current furniture was going to go over, and it's not. It's going to stay because of, again, looking forward and trying to best set up those groups to service our kids and our staff. All that furniture will stay, so we'll be looking at purchasing new stuff. So, and then if you weren't here for the earlier meeting, we got word that the turf field will be going in maybe as early as next week. So that is a change. We thought maybe early June.
Do you want to?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so all the gravel's down, and then there's what's that,
There's a
Yeah.
geotextile layer under the layer of gravel, which I'm assuming is to help the moisture percolate and not the weeds. So they've got all that ready to go, and it's really exciting that the turf is going to be installed before they do the track, which should help not create problems with the vehicles running over stuff. So they're very excited. The turf company had a window to get it done, and they weren't supposed to be here till June, but they're going to get it done, and then the track will be poured at the same time the State Route 201 is done. They're trying to conserve costs. Again, thank you, Peterson.
And I think that's it for the Facilities Committee meeting.
Might want to mention thank you to Mr. Black here, once again, on the access road.
You're making a mess out there.
Sarah.
Yeah, for those who aren't aware, Mr. Black has probably saved the district anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000, and I don't know how much of that too was your early site work. He did a lot of the early site work when the farmhouse was still there. I don't know how much that was, but with what he's doing out there now and possibly doing well, we like to, because that's direct savings to us, and Mrs. Hageman likes that because that's money she doesn't have to spend. So we are in your debt, Mr. Black, and thank you so much for all you've done and for all your apprentices that have helped out. We really appreciate it. Technology Committee.
No update on Technology Committee?
Liaison reports.
Yes.
Okay.
Legislative. 3 new bills were introduced at the end of March. House Bill 135 would require school districts to grant students excused absences from school for participation in 4-H and FFA programs and activities. Again, these bills have just been introduced. House Bill 139 would increase the penalties for assault if the victim is acting as a sports official or the assault is committed in retaliation for the victim's actions as a sports official. And House Bill 140 would increase penalties for passing a school bus and allow the use of cameras on school buses.
Thank you, Mr. Elam. CTC liaison updates?
Just a couple of quick updates. As the school year's winding down, and I spoke with a senior at the musical the other night, and he said he had 6 days of school left. So to confirm that, I did check. May 9th is their last day for seniors, and May 18th is the last day for juniors. And typically they have a graduation at that time, but it officially wasn't posted, and I did not have a minute to call and check on that date, so I apologize for not knowing that specific CTC graduation date. But should be that middle of May. Thank you, that's all I had.
Thank you, Mrs. Donahue. Did Mrs. Mansfield submit her activity report to anyone on the board? Okay. I don't want to steal her thunder, and she can talk about it again next month, but I do again want to thank everyone involved in the musical. The show was absolutely phenomenal. I'm always amazed at how the students are cast and all the people who put time into the costumes and the set. We have staff members here involved, makeup. I don't want to name everyone by name or I'll miss someone, but your work is appreciated immensely, and I'll let Mrs. Mansfield talk more about that when she returns. Okay, is there any old business? Yes, Mr. King, go.
Yeah, I just wanted to cover in discussions in our work session, it seemed to come to a full consensus. I'm sorry, we couldn't come to a consensus in a work session. That's why we're here at this meeting. But it seemed like the direction of the board was that we could meet the second Thursday of the month for the work session, which would deal with establishing the agenda as well as work through any of our work sessions. And I think with this, it'll strategically allow us to also reach out and hit some other topics as well, so we can focus more in on strategic planning, school curriculum, all our strategic master facilities plans, those other areas that it feels like we're never able to get to because we're always talking about the agenda and the current events and trying to be more proactive and across the spectrum for our holistic thing. With that, so if anybody is unopposed, I would make a motion that we change our work sessions to the second Thursday of the month at 5:30 in the media center.
Yeah, so Mr. King, after getting all your feedback, I met with Mr. Podgorski, and I think that there may be some things we need to do with board policy to make all those things happen. So he is helping me come up with a draft, and then we're going to run it through Mr. Burkhart with Neola, and then hopefully bring something forward to the board at the next regular meeting. If that, I think we have to do it that way because of all the wording about the agenda meetings, and I think there was a sentence left out, and that was never really updated, and so we're just going to clean up that entire section.
I think the hope is that we have one pre-agenda meeting, have the group work session meeting, and then have the board meeting without another pre-agenda meeting, because it's taking a lot of their time and no one wants to go through the same agenda 4 times, or at least I don't think we do. So that's kind of the thought, and we've got to get our policy to match that.
Right, so even though we have those other competing interests that we'd like to do, the work session itself and the date and time are not a part of that policy we voted on at the beginning of the year. So that then the motion would be amended to say that we had moved our work session to the second Thursday of each month at 5:30 in the media center or other room deemed appropriate.
I'll second the motion, Mr. King. Is there any further discussion?
Actually, yes, I'm sorry, apologize. Earlier I was thinking that we were talking about the first Thursday, and so it might just be me. I did have a conflict on that second Thursday, and I know it kind of goes against what we were trying to plan, but I also wondered if it wasn't a bad idea to go back to our original plan of that first Tuesday of the month and see if we can still work some of the specials in that we wanted to. And I wanted to make sure that it was all clean with Mr. Pogorski as well, no matter what we did. And so I just want everybody to think about that as well. Or just ask if that was something, I'm not sure other than, and I know it was a push sometimes because the first of the month the first Tuesday of the month is early, and I know it puts Tina in trouble sometimes because her reports don't come in till the day before. And if the first of the month is actually the Tuesday of that month, and I did look ahead, and I think there's four more months, 4 or 5, where that could happen. So I realize that could be a risk, but I just wondered if we wanted to consider going back to where we were previously, unless there was any other hardships for anybody.
I missed previous. What did you mean by previously?
The way that we had done it through December of 2022. Sorry.
Thank you.
And I apologize because I didn't realize, again, that second, I was thinking first Thursday of the month and is where we were headed, and this is really, I know your motion's for the second Thursday. So, this is something.
We have a motion and a second. We need to vote. And
Right, as part of the discussion, if we're not ready for that, then vote appropriately. Because we have to vote.
Mrs. Hageman, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Sebastian?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
No.
Mr. Elam?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1. Okay. Is there any other old business? Okay, Mr. Lawson, public participation.
Because I'm here in a couple of capacities. I'll talk as a bus driver a little bit later. But first, I come as the new president of the Bethel Alumni Association. We have not had a banquet for 4 years because of COVID. So we're expecting a good crowd on May the 13th here in Bethel Hall. We want to thank Bethel for giving us the use of the hall, and Mr. Crispin especially, as he also allowed us to move our mailing address from Lisa Heiler's home mailbox, which gets crammed full of lots of things, to the Bethel High School. And we're getting good cooperation with everything there. Also want to thank Mr. Crispin for looking into the fact that we may be able to tour the new elementary building at some, at least even if it's just a walk-in, look down the hallways. I'll be with you looking to that. Mm-hmm. Also, I guess now we'll be able to even look at the new football field and let them put their toes in it, I guess. I don't know. We'll never know. We'll see what happens. Concerning contracts, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the Bethel bus drivers to thank Mr. Crispin and the board for increasing our field trip pay. Our field trip pay was over 30% less than the lowest competitor other school we could find. Mr. Crispin did a lot of research. We had done a lot of research, gave him figures, and he came up with a figure that basically put us in the middle of our conference. But I will remind you, the teachers here and the bus drivers, we would not leave this school to go to another conference member. If we were a bus driver, we would go to Vandalia, to Tecumseh, to Tip, to Wayne. So our competition is actually a little bit higher tiered than that. We have lost many community members, as most bus drivers are Bethel alum or people that volunteer, people that are retired, and come back to do something while his wife toils in the classroom. I commend you for doing that, also for your research for the contracts we issued tonight. I won't take that much longer. Want to thank you for the contracts you researched for tonight. And I want to also, what you said really touched a nerve of all the teachers out here. That statement was off the wall, Mr. King, and it really hurt me. I'm always very conscious of what goes on with the teachers because my whole family teaches except for me, and we did put up with a wage freeze, and we got that money back. I was on the board when that happened, and it was not an easy thing to do, and I was glad to see that happened. So her being upset is echoed by everybody that's an educator here and by community members that know what they put in over the course of a year and how long their days are. Just like Mr. Crispin is here, teachers put in a lot more time. And when you do that and say 180-day contract versus a 260-day contract you do that for effect. And I don't think that's fair. A teacher gets a contract to teach the kids, and they give them a year's worth of teaching. Administrators administrate to their contract, and they give a year. And for you guys to always tear that apart and start saying 180 days versus 240 days versus 260 days, and then going down by day is totally unfair to the people that put in the time to educate our children. But I will tell you, Tracy, that this gentleman right here is going to research it, and I'm sure that even the starting point will hopefully be somewhat close to fair to what we get, because we are growing from one of the small school districts to right now we are 4th highest in the county, and we're pushing. So we will deserve that compensation. And if you guys are not being forthright, you guys are not being thinking ahead, we need an operating levy. We have not asked the people of this community to do a lot. We've been given from the state a new building. You can't ask the people just to pay for it, and we're going to run out of money, and then that'll be an excuse for, oh, no teachers or no raises. We need money to operate what we're going to have and what we're going to have in the future. And if people see it, they will pay for it, and they can see that school there. You have a logical explanation to go to them to ask. So please consider an operating levy, and please consider your teachers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawson. Mr. Black. Mr. Black, you're last but not least tonight.
Well, I like being last. That works out really well. Wow. I talk loud, and that's really loud. I just come tonight, I wanted to commend the board on your decision to hire Mr. Christman. When I when I attended Bethel, we had a superintendent named John Sinsman. And I think he was there the whole time that I was in school and a lot longer. And I really respected that guy because he could do every job there was in the school and let everybody know it. I mean, the rules has changed a little bit, but I saw that guy drive a school bus. I saw him teach school. I saw him work on the boiler, change electrical outlets, and we just had respect for him. And I've been around this guy now 3 or 4 times, and I think they're cut from the same cloth. It's a guy that's looking at the entire picture, and I wanted to commend you on your hiring him, so thank you. A couple other things. I didn't know if anybody had said anything about Shrek the musical. I was afraid when Mr. Elam retired we would never have another good program. Danny's 1 year older than me, but we remember one another from school. And I was kind of afraid when he retired that that was going to be gone. But we won't talk about the last 2 or 3 years, but this year they really done it. And I was there yesterday, and the fire drill didn't really make any difference to me. But it felt good because it looked to me like every single kid in that musical pulled their weight and done their job and pulled it off excellent. So I hope we commend them on a job well done. A couple other things. I don't know how much you know about Skills USA or even how much I know about it. What is that? Oh, there's a time limit. Good Lord, I didn't know that. Anyway, Skills USA, we had the state competition at our training site on Saturday, and we had one Bethel student there, and I was proud as punch to be there and see the Bethel student. Other than that, I am going to say one thing about what Scott was talking about. I've always liked Scott, but I like him even more tonight. When you guys are talking about all these raises and all, I didn't look at the agenda, and I'm hearing that we're in the middle of the road. My older brother, my 3 older sisters graduated from here. I graduated from here, 2 daughters. I got 2 grandkids here, and I'm hoping that every grandkid I have will go to Bethel. That is the plan. So I don't want the mediocre people teaching here. I don't want the mediocre pay. I want us to be at the top level of everything. The more you pay, the better you will have people to choose from. And now what's it say? I can't read. 2 minutes. All right. You're getting on my nerves, but that's okay.
He'll get the hook out here
Let's
in another
pay
2
these
minutes.
people, because Bethel is not a poor township. There's money in this township, and we can afford to take care of the people. There is absolutely nothing more important than our youth, and we have to take care of them. When I looked at those figures up there, I didn't know anything. I do have a bachelor's degree. I'm hearing teachers with master's degrees and everything else. So I'm thinking they're way smarter than me. But one thing I must have learned better than them, because I make just a whole lot more money. I don't know if I'd get out of bed for what you're paying these people. Okay, does that say 1 minute? So let's take care of our people, let's take care of our school, and I will support you in any way I can, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. All right, we do need an executive session tonight. I know we need an executive session for number 1. Are there any other reasons we need to go into executive session? Okay, may I have a motion to go into executive session for number 1, please?
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for item number 1.
Thank you, Mr. King. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Donahue. Mrs. Hageman, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Sebastian?
Yes.
Mr. Elam?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Time entered into executive session 8:54. The board does not anticipate conducting any business following executive session, but if an emergency arises, we do have that ability. Thank you for your time and for coming out tonight, whether you've joined us in person or online. We appreciate it, and have a good rest of your evening, and hopefully the weather will be back to 70 or 80 degrees later this week.